I'm going to show you how you can access a Google Sheet from basically any bit of code, whether it's Python, JavaScript, Go, whatever it may be. I'm also going to show you how you can add things to a sheet. Then we're going to update our virtual assistant called Bologna from the last video to integrate what we've done here so that we're storing tasks inside of a Google Sheet rather than just in memory. If you didn't watch the last video, check it out right up here. All right, let's do it. Okay, to start off, we basically need a way to interface with Google Sheets because that's where we want to store our tasks. Luckily, Google actually offers this thing called AppScript. So AppScript is a way where you can write scripts and add Google products to your script so that you can interface with them. So if you want to try out AppScript, you go to script.google.com and then you can create a script from here. So we're going to click New Project and let's call this Sheet Man. I don't know. All right, so in order to actually interface with this, in order to call this using an HTTP request, which we want to do, we have to update the function because the function by default is just called myFunction. What we want it to actually be called is doGet. I know it's a bit of a weird function name, but we're going to call it doGet and we're going to add in a request because we're sending an HTTP request. If we wanted to send a post request, we would just make it doPost. All right, so now we need a way to actually interface with Google Sheets. So all we have to do is click Services here, and then we just have to find Google Sheets. So if we go down, we can find Google Sheets API and click Add. It's going to say Adding Service, and we can now see Sheets down here. If we click this, we can see this, which is fine, but it doesn't really show any. Oh, actually, you can click See Documentation. Great. So we can now view the documentation for interfacing with Google Sheets. So that's great, but I actually already know what things I want to do here. So I'm going to just go ahead and close this. All right, so, well, this is great, but we don't actually have a sheet to interface with. So we're just going to type sheets.new and it will open up a new sheet. So we're going to call this sheet My Tasks. Pretty great. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to actually grab the sheet ID, which is this unique resource that is after the /d. So we don't want the next slash, but we want everything else up until the edit, not including the edit. Then we're going to go back to our script and we're going to add at the top of our file here, lit doc equal spreadsheet dot open by ID. And there we go. If we paste in this ID, then we can open this doc. Now, to start off, for a GET request, we want to just have some kind of response that we're going to return. So we're going to type lit response equal status success. Now, this is in JavaScript, so this is not Python. So just as a heads up, so lit basically is defining a variable, and then an equals, this is just a JavaScript or a JSON object. So it's defining status, and it's setting the value of the status key to be success. That way, when we get the response from this within our Python, we can check what the status is, and if it's success, then we know that it worked. All right, so next we need to return this JSON. So we're gonna do return content service dot create text output json.stringify request set mime type content service dot mime type dot json. I know this is a long kind of convoluted line here, but basically what this is doing is just it's saying that it's going to create some form of text output using this content service, which is automatically imported into any kind of AppScript project. Then we're going to use the JSON library, which is just available in any JavaScript or for any JavaScript code. And we're going to stringify that, which basically just means it's going to make this into something that can be sent over HTTP. And we're going to be doing, oh, sorry, we wanted response. Almost had a bug. And then we're going to use the response here. And then we're going to set the MIME type to JSON. That means that the receiver of this response will know that it is a form of JSON, which means it can then interpret that. Sweet. Well, this is great, except we don't do anything yet in this script except return success. Well, technically we've done it, but we haven't done anything. So let's actually add something to our script. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we need to grab a sheet. So we're gonna say lit sheet equal doc, right? Because this is the doc that we're referencing here, dot get sheet by name, and we'll call it tasks. Now this sheet name, let's actually add a capital T. This actually needs to match the sheet name down here. So we're gonna call this tasks. Now we can go back and now we can access this sheet. The next thing we're gonna do is have to figure out where we wanna store the data within the sheet. So the simplest thing we can do is just say the A column. So what we can do now is get everything from that A column. So we can say lit values equal sheet dot get range, and then pass in a range as though you're using sheets. So for instance, you could say A3 to A1000. Now this is gonna return a range value. So that's not really what we want. We actually want the values within the range. So all we have to do is type .get values. Okay, perfect. So the reason we want to get the values here is because we want to not just overwrite whatever we've added. So because we're going to add to this A column, let's also say lit call equal A. So then we can reference this later. Okay, so let's also say that lit last empty row equal 3. So this basically means that we're going to start searching for values at A3 to A1000, and the last row that's empty is going to be whatever we set it to here. So now we're going to loop over the values that within values for lit I equals 0, I is less than values.length, I plus plus. Okay, so now we're going to loop over every value. Now all we have to do is just say if values I equals an empty string, then we know we found the final value. So all we then need to do is just set last empty row. So last empty row is going to equal I plus 3. So now we're going to add 3 because we're starting with A3. So we want to start with the third value there. Then we're going to break out of this loop. So now we know the last row that we can actually add to. So now let's set the cell that we want to add to within sheets. So let target cell equals target sheet dot get range, and then we're going to pass in call plus last empty row. So call being our target column and last empty row being the one that we just found. Then all we have to do is say target cell dot set value equal to our value. So new value, which is perfect, except we don't have new value yet. So how we're going to actually get new value is we're going to have new value be something that is retrieved from the request. So the request object here has something called parameters, and these are just query parameters associated with the URL. So what we're going to do here is say lit next value equals request.parameter.text. All right, so I went ahead and saved this, and now all we have to do is give it a try. So let's go ahead and click deploy. This is basically a way to deploy our current version so that it's available to, well, whoever has the URL. So we have deploy here. We now have to click a deployment type. So we have to click up here, select a type. We want to create a web app, and then we're going to call this v1 for our first version. Now we want to say who can execute this. We're going to leave this as is. So myself, and then who has access to this. Now this is the important part here. We actually want to make this anybody. So anyone who has access to this can run this. The reason is if we don't set this to anyone, then it means that we have to basically call this web app using some kind of credentials. But we don't want to do that because that's hard. So let's just not do that because it's going to be way simpler. Now this does mean that if I click deploy here, I now have to authorize access because I'm authorizing whoever accesses this endpoint, this web app, to run on my behalf. So I can go ahead and click authorize access, and I'll click through this. Once you hit this page here, you have to click advanced, and then you have to click go to, then the name of whatever your script is. So we go ahead and click that. We click allow and updating deployment, and we're done. Now, the script URL here is basically something that's very important that you shouldn't let people have access to, because as I said, anybody who has this URL can call it. All right, so we're copying this here. Now, let's test it out. All right, so now we're gonna come down here and we're going to be updating a new script called Sheet Assistant. Sheet Assistant is basically just the assistant we had from this video up here. And I've just updated it, so now it will work with Sheets, or rather we're doing that now. All we're gonna do to start is use the requests pip package to call this endpoint, which I've pasted in here. And we're going to set the query parameter of text to equal to subscribe. If you wanna click that subscribe button if this works, then fantastic. And if it doesn't work, please subscribe anyways. All right, cool. So we're gonna go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, we got success. Let's go ahead and see the moment of truth. It says subscribe. Okay, excellent. Okay, let's just to show that I'm not lying here. Let's do this again, and let's say like %20 the %20 video. So %20 is basically the query parameter version of a space. So let's run this and see if this works. Like the video. Awesome, cool. So there we go. We now have a way to interface with Sheets just using a simple GET request. So let's go ahead and add this into our script, or into our assistant. So we're gonna just copy this. We'll go into adding a task. We'll say that it's listening to true, and listening to task rather than appending to this, we're going to append whatever the response is. Text equals this plus, what did I call it before? Let me make this full again. Command. We probably don't want command because it's going to include the word Bologna, but let's just do it anyways. So we actually need to replace the command value here with if there's any spaces in it, which there should be because it's going to have the word Bologna in it, then we're going to need to replace any spaces with the %20. So in order to do that, we're going to use another thing up here called URL lib, and we can basically encode text just using this. So I just Googled this, and this is how it says how it'll work. So we should be able to do this and encode command. And there we go. We don't really care about the value here, about the response, because it doesn't really matter. Okay, cool. So that should work. All right, so I quickly just ran this and tested this out, and I realized that I forgot the query parameter here. So my bad. That happens sometimes, and then you have to quickly debug. I also updated this real fast to make it so that we don't have to say Bologna again. If we want to actually add a task. So let's give this a go. Bologna, add a task. Pet the dog. Yes, that is what I said. All right, so this is great. So now we have subscribe, we have like the video, and we have what's the dog. Exactly what I said. Nothing is wrong with that. But you might notice that we don't actually have a way to list the tasks. So let's update our code to do that, because it's pretty fast to actually do that. So first, we're going to say for list the tasks, we're going to call this, and we're going to add in a new parameter called queue, and it's going to be queue list. Queue is just basically stands for query. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to call it queue. So all we're going to do now is just say if request, this is a weird thing I'm typing here, but it's going to make sense. And request.parameter.queue, and request.parameter.q equals list, then we're going to actually just get all the values. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to move this up here. So, because we want to just be able to access the sheet anyways, we're going to get all of the values here. And so lit values equals this. Actually, I should put this up here. Great. Then we're going to return a new result. So let's do lit result equals status success and tasks and an empty array. All right, now all we have to do is just basically copy this here, but rather than incrementing this value here, we're going to add it to our list. So we're going to say if it, oops, this is a little off. So if values does not equal this, then we're going to go ahead and say result.tasks.push values I. Now I noticed when I was actually testing this in the past that this actually returns an array. So we're just going to take the 0 value from the array. Okay, great. And then if we don't find anything, then we're going to break. This could actually be written way nicer where we just do, if we do this, then we break. I don't know why I can't type today. My fingers are all jangled. It's totally a verb, right? All right, so I'm gonna save that. And now we want to put the result in here. And this might just work. Let's give it a go. So now all we have to do is we have to get the values from this. So we can do JSON equals x.json, and then we can get the tasks. So tasks equals JSON, and then tasks. Wow, I'm really struggling today with typing. Now, we might notice that there's a global tasks here. We're going to comment that out because we don't want to reference that tasks. We want to reference the one here. All right, so let's see if this works. Is this going to possibly work right away? Probably not, but let's give it a go. Oh, wait, you know what? It's definitely not going to work because we need to redeploy our script. So we're going to click new deployment. We're going to do task list, deploy, and we're going to grab the updated script. And then we're going to get this. We're going to update it in both places, all places it's referenced, save it, and run. Bologna, list tasks. Bologna, add a task. Get better at typing. Thank you. All right, so that's it. We just made a simple script within AppScript, and now we can add anything we want to our task list, which is in Sheets. In the past, I've even actually done this so that I could track my expenses and my income using the Shortcuts app on the iPhone so that it all went to a Google Sheet and I could just track it simply. So if I made a change, I could just tap a button, put in a number, and it would send it there and I would know it would work. If you want a video on how to do that, leave a comment down below and I will be sure to make one. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please, again, leave a like down below. It helps out so much. And until next time, remember, I'm Jake. You're awesome. This has been making an AppScript app that can interface with Sheets. Cheers.